Hey there, what's going on everyone, and welcome back to the Bimmer Barn. Today we're going to be retrofitting the iDrive system on my E91 335i swapped wagon, and we're going to be doing this using the parts car 335 that we have on the side. It has a full iDrive system, and we don't have any retrofit kits or any additional wiring harnesses. We just have a car with a working iDrive system. So this is going to be a really basic, kind of tricky retrofit because we've got to pull parts off of a car and make them work on the new one. So let's go ahead and take a look at our parts car. We need to get the iDrive radio and the screen out, as well as the controller, and we need to get the harnesses out, but I think that we're gonna get the harnesses out once we've pulled the entire dashboard, because of course you do have to swap the dashboard when you retrofit iDrive onto your car. So this DIY can be a bit of a pain to do, but at the end of the day I think it's gonna be worth it, and it's gonna be kind of like the finishing touch on our 335i wagon. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get straight to work. So here's our 2008 335i parts car. This thing came pretty well equipped from factory with some really nice options, including the factory iDrive system, as well as sports seats and stuff. But we took a lot of things out and already installed them in the wagon. And the last thing is going to be this iDrive dashboard and the entire radio system. Now, as you can see, I've already done a lot of dismantling in here. The center vent is off. We have the radio removed here. Also, the iDrive is already loose. So I've kind of taken a look here. I've already marked off one of the harnesses, and this is the one that goes to the controller in the middle of the dashboard here. And what we're gonna do is remove the dashboard, obviously get the iDrive out. You have to get the climate out, the screen, your instrument cluster, the steering wheel, and then these trim panels as well, and the light switch right there. But once you've got everything out, including the screws and the speaker that's up there and the solar sensor, then at that point you can remove the screws that hold the dashboard on, and then remove the entire dashboard itself. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna check out the harnesses and try to just dismantle them from the factory harness, and we'll try to reuse them on our E91 wagon, because I don't have any retrofit harnesses that I bought aftermarket or that I've made yet. So we're gonna try to do this as OEM as possible, and hopefully it'll come out working 100%. So I'm gonna start by removing the wheel here. I already got hand loose. Now I can remove this driver's vent. And there's this satellite, I don't know, whatever this radio GPS antenna is, part of the old radio that they had in here. I'm gonna remove that. There you go, get that out of the way. And then the light switch over here comes out as well. And now I'm gonna pull the iDrive out. There's a couple of screws for that up here, but we'll have to get those later. And a couple of harnesses. Come here. So while we're there, we're also gonna grab the iDrive. You know what? I'm gonna grab some tape. And I've got masking tape because I'm just gonna mark all the connectors that we need to keep for the iDrive. That way, when I'm pulling the dashboard out and then we get to trying to transfer these over, we'll know which ones we need to take, and we'll just ignore the other harnesses. Now, I promise when we get the dashboard in the garage, I'll give you guys a much better look as we install it and, you know, remove the one from my wagon. But for now, I'm just worried about this weather outside here in Florida. It's a little hit or miss right now, and we might get rained on if we're not careful. So I'm just gonna kind of rush through getting everything apart, and we'll have a nice close look when we put it together in the wagon. There's our iDrive head unit. This is the CCC. So the pre-LCI cars had CCC iDrive, and that was kind of the more basic ones that you're gonna see out of this. And then there's the CIC, which is the really cool looking iDrive, which has a lot of different menus and stuff, looks more modern. All right, so there you go. All the iDrive stuff is out. And now we need to remove the pillars because those are gonna get in the way when we try to get the dashboard out. And now we're down to the last few screws. Like you saw, I went ahead and taped off all the factory radio related harnesses so we can remove them later. But the last screws that we need to remove, starting from the left side, there's gonna be one right here underneath the dashboard, kind of near that trunk pop button. Then you've got one right here behind the left vent. You got one right here behind the iDrive screen. Another Torx right here next to the vent. And then you've got one 10mm bolt right here behind the vent. And then two 8mm bolts right here beneath the radio. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen all those.
I think we do still need to pull out this little, what is this, the climate? There you go. So we need to disconnect those as well. But once we remove all those bolts, we'll be able to, I think, pull the dashboard straight out of the car, hopefully, and get it out in one piece. All right, so we've got the dashboard out, really nice and clean removal. And just kind of taking a look at the harnesses here. I noticed that there's this one here that connects the iDrive display to the radio itself. I marked off both lines, but it's not at all integrated into the harness, so that's nice and easy. But then we've got the main quadra-lock connector, which is this thing right here. I believe this is gonna be exactly the same between the iDrive radio and the non-iDrive radio. And then you've got, I think the black is the antenna right here, so it's going to be the same, but this blue antenna wire right here actually goes into the harness, you can see, under the carpet and routed to the back amplifier, which I think we might have to remove. So I think what I'm going to do next is basically get the dashboard into the garage, and that way we know it's going to be dry in there. But as we start to install the iDrive over there, we'll be able to come over here and compare. And also the main connector for the iDrive display is routed behind the dashboard here. So we've got everything that we need here, hopefully, to retrofit into the wagon. So why don't we go back over there now and start pulling that dashboard out.
Now again, I have an advantage on the wagon here because I've already started to take apart the center console here. As you can see, I was already prepared for doing this iDrive retrofit. So it's already loose enough that we can kind of just back this center console out and we'll have access to that lower harness and where we're going to be doing the wiring there. But over on the dashboard, everything is still 100% connected. Even the glove box, all the under panels here as well. So we're going to start by disconnecting the battery so that we can get the airbag off the wheel and then get the steering wheel out. And then we're going to remove all of the center vents, and then I'll show you guys from there.
Well, so now we've got our old dashboard out and the new one is right behind the car ready to go in, but we need to make sure that our iDrive system is installed first and the wiring is done. So I've collected the basic components here. You've got the iDrive knob, you've got the display, and then the head unit itself. And then you've got this harness cable, which actually just connects the display to the head unit, one direct cable, but we still have some missing harnesses, particularly the one that goes from the chassis to the display. And then we've got one for the iDrive knob right here. We also have one for the fan on the back of the iDrive unit. So let's go ahead and go back to the 335 and pull off the remaining harnesses. Now here inside the 335, I've already done the hard work of de-raveling the harness here and just trying to figure out where all the wires go. So number one is going to be the iDrive knob harness, and this is a 4-pin connector. Now one of the wires is going to be a brown ground, so it doesn't matter where you ground that, and on the car itself it goes into the chassis behind the heater core, so we're not going to worry about that. But we do have 2 wires, particularly the CAN bus high and low, and also the power wire, which when I trace it through this harness here, it goes all the way to the junction box. And for the power wire, you'll see that it comes to this connector up here. So we're gonna make note of that pin location in here. And then the CAN bus wires, actually, they're one of these sets. I forget which one, left or right, but you can see it goes into the chassis here. And this is how the CAN bus system works. You essentially have like a loop between all the modules, high and low. You'll see that they're all connected there. They're literally just spliced into each other from factory. So all these orange and green wires from all the modules come into these connection points, and that way through the CAN bus they can all communicate with each other. So we're just going to go ahead and de-ravel the connection here, and then we can always route the CAN bus into any CAN bus wires. And I think the easiest way is just going to be to route it into the radio CAN bus here. So that's going to be easy access for us to tap into. The power wire, we're going to de-pin it from the junction box, and the ground wire, we're going to cut it up here by the harness and we'll ground it to anywhere else on the car. Now for the iDrive screen, we have this connector up here, and I was able to trace it. Basically, it clips onto the back of this crash beam right here, and I unraveled the harness. You can see pulling on it comes all the way down here to this computer module right here. It has 2 connectors on it, and it's normally at the bottom of the junction box right in this cubby hole. And on the black connector, I was able to find all the wires for the iDrive controller. So again, you have CAN bus wires here, you have a power, and you have a ground, and these all come from this connector right here. You see just 4 wires. So what we're gonna do is de-pin them from this black connector here, and then we'll make a note and repin them in our car in the same exact location, I believe. Although I think it's a little different if your car is before 07 or after 07. So it's gonna be actually a little bit different for my car, being that it's an 06, something you wanna keep track of as well if you're gonna be doing this retrofit. Now the other harnesses that we have to worry about, there's going to be this one right here. It's for the fan that goes behind the iDrive radio, and it's actually just one standalone harness that goes into the quadrilock connector up here in this corner. Now this black radio antenna, that's going to be your normal radio, but this blue one, it goes to the amplifier in the back of the car. I'm not sure if this is going to be necessary to our retrofit, although you can see it's routed into this loom, and it should be just one continuous cable, so we should be able to pull it out of the car without cutting it. But for now, we're going to see if we can get the radio to work without this blue cable. So we're going to take this harness though, because we need the fan on the back of the iDrive CCC unit to work, and that combined with the other harness and the one for the iDrive, and I think that's all that we're going to need in order to retrofit it into the wagon.
Eventually.
All right, so we've got our harnesses removed. Like I said, this is the controller harness. There's going to be 1 pin here. It was a pain in the butt to remove from the junction box, but this is going to be really nice because we're going to be able to use a fuse source to power the iDrive controller. Then you got the CAN bus wires, which are just going to be tapped into any CAN bus, and a ground wire, which can be tapped in anywhere. Then you've got the display harness, and this one has all pins to be installed, and this is the one that's going to be different depending on what year your car is. So we've got a ground, a power, and again, CAN bus wires. And then these are the 2 harnesses, one that connects the display to the radio, and one that connects the radio to the fan on the back of the radio. And besides that, I think that we should be able to get this radio working. My concern at this point is that I'm not sure if we're going to be able to use the non-Logic 7 amplifier. So as you can see, we have all these wires for speakers on this harness that isn't even used on the 2008 335 parts car. The wires off to the right side here, they look pretty similar. This little bunch of wires goes it goes back into this audio harness under the carpet into the back of the car, and that's going to get disconnected because that is where the fan gets plugged in for the radio. So yeah, realistically, I'm not sure if it's going to work plug and play without coding like I was thinking, because again, the amplifier is not coded to whatever this setup is, but we're going to try it anyways. So let's go ahead and get the harness routed now, and we'll get these things pinned up, and then we'll do a test run with the display and the radio and key on and see if it powers up. So we're going to start with the display wiring, and that one's the simplest because like I said, it routes along the top here, comes down this harness, and literally goes right into this black electrical connector for the module right there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to remove the interior board so that we don't have this locking connector anymore, but we'll have access to the pins, and then we're going to count them out, and we have the wiring diagram here. So it shows us we have 37, 11, 30, and pin, 27 as well, that we're going to be wiring into this. And they all should be empty, although I did see somewhere on the forum someone once had an issue where theirs were already occupied. So we'll see what the case is, but let me go ahead now and break down this connector. $18, $17, $16, $15, $14, $13, $12, $11, that's empty. Well, I just disassembled this connector here and come to see that pin 37 is the only one that already has a wire in it, and it's this orange and red wire here. And you know what's funny is that I traced it, you know, it goes definitely up through this loom, and I figured, you know, there's 50-50 chance that it went left or right. And I just happened to look here. I see the same looking red wire. You know what it goes to? The glove compartment light. So I went and confirmed with the diagrams, but that's what it looks like. And the thing is, on the diagrams, it actually just literally pins off of this. So they use the same power supply for the display as they do for the glove compartment light. Although I guess maybe in the iDrive cars, maybe they don't have a glove compartment light, but I'm not too worried about that. What we're probably gonna do is tap in maybe somewhere up here. That way you won't see it as, you know, when you look into this part of the dashboard. But we'll tap into that power wire up here. The other three, we're just going to insert into the open locations on the connector here. And then we're going to try to kind of just zip tie those 3 loose wires up to the harness. And we'll leave that extra wire right here, kind of around this area. So when we plug in the iDrive, we'll be able to connect that connector. This is gonna have to get routed like this up here. Now that we've put those wires in, I'm gonna put this connector back on. So that's all together. So as you can see, we've got our information display connector and it's routed. This is the power wire for the that lighter charger or whatever. I think it's for the flashlight actually. But yeah, that's the power wire. And then the other 3 wires we've got routed down to this black connector. We're gonna plug back in a second. And we'll probably just use some zip ties once we're done checking the functionality. Now let's go ahead though and do the controller wiring. So now we've got our iDrive controller wired up. You'll see it right here. And I was splicing into the CAN high and low for the radio, as well as the ground for the climate control. And then the power wire gets routed up to the junction box. And that one was a pain to get in, but we were able to successfully route it into the back of the junction box and then put a fuse in the front slot of it. So it's a fused power to the iDrive controller. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna mock up the display, the radio, and we're gonna connect the ignition switch, maybe the instrument cluster as well, so we can test the entire system for the first time. And after thinking about it, I don't expect there to be any radio noise coming out of the speakers because the radio unit itself is programmed to the Logic 7, which would only use the MOS bus to send audio to the rest of the speakers and the amplifier. Whereas my car has the hi-fi system, so it has all these wires which we didn't see on the 335 parts car. And so for that reason, I don't think that this radio is gonna send audio to these wires, not until we code it. So we're gonna test it and make sure that we can use the knob, that it powers on, and that the display works. And then once that all is tested, we're gonna go ahead and reassemble the dashboard, and then we can go ahead and code the CCC unit to make it work with my hi-fi system, and then hopefully we'll have radio working. All right, so now's the part where we start crossing our fingers. All right. Oh boy, look at this. Looking good. Oh my God, that scared the crap out of me. Of course, since we don't have half of these things hooked up, the wipers are gonna go off, but let's just see how the controller, if this loads up, we can try to get it working. Here we go. Oh, that was weird. Oh man. Oh, it did go, look. That's weird. Well, it looks like it powers up good, although for some reason I'm not able to control it, although I can't tell, maybe it's just, and excuse the windshield wipers, maybe it's just trying to load up some sort of software or something like that, but I cannot get to control it with this knob here. So let's go ahead and turn this off. So I think the best thing for me to do is just try out the power and grounds and see that they're all able to communicate.
Moments later.
All right, so quick update. I was able to pull out my power probe and we went to the 4 pins on the back of the controller. The 2 ones that I was mainly worried about was the power and ground, and we did have a successful power from the junction box over there. So when I tested the ground, it did not seem to be grounded. So I transferred the wire from, well, what it was a brown and black wire, but I went to a solid brown, which is an actual ground. So that was my mistake. But now that it is successfully grounded out, we should be able to test it. And there's the accept. And there you go. We've got successful control of the iDrive screen. Again, it's not gonna have full functionality right now because the coding is not correct for the unit right here. But let's go ahead and finish reassembling the dashboard now that we've tested everything and it's all working great. And then we can move forward to doing the coding and then testing this out and seeing if we have the speakers working and our full iDrive retrofit completely done. Working. All right, pardon my excitement. I've been sitting here on the laptop for about an hour and a half now. Finally, I was able to get it working, and it was just a combination of a lot of things, honestly, between the coding for the car itself, and then also at one point I realized that I didn't even have the MOS bus loop connected up here. Let me go ahead and turn that down. But I didn't have the MOS bus loop connected there, so the fiber optic cable, it wasn't looping around, and that's part of the reason why it wasn't, you know, making the gong when the door was open either. So I put that in, and then I'm sitting here looking at the radio, and I was noticing that it looked like this, that it was muted. And so I Googled really quickly, iDrive radio stuck muted, and then I went and did a reset procedure, and what you do is you press and hold for like 2 or 3 seconds, the eject, and then the volume button right here. You press and hold all 3 of those, and it resets the radio. And when it did that, that's when I started having everything working again. So rather than letting the car go to sleep and all that, resetting the radio is what made all the coding options start to work. And the coding that I did, I'll show you very briefly. What I did was I did an edit VO, so the vehicle order, which has all the information on it. So you're gonna select your car, it's gonna grab the VIN, and you'll see that there's an option 677. 677 is the Logic 7 radio option. So what you want to do, what I did, is I went and deleted this, And then up here, you'll go ahead and put star 676. And again, this is for my car because I'm trying to tell the central information computer, all this radio news stuff. I'm trying to tell it that I have the base hi-fi radio system, not the Logic 7. So that is what 676 stands for. We're gonna go ahead and add that so it's in the vehicle order. Click OK. And we're gonna go back and then we're going to code the ECUs that are related. So the C Apple, the C Audi, the CC gate, the C host, the central information display, and the C tune. These are all the radio modules that need to be coded to be told that the car has whatever sort of sound system it has. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. I think that's enough for you guys. If you know how to deal with NTS Expert, then you can probably do this at home. Otherwise, I would not recommend, if you haven't used this program before, just go ahead and call someone up who can do this coding for you. They'll even do it remotely. So as long as you have a laptop, they'll remotely log in and do this coding for you. But wow, I can't wait. I can't wait to start using this radio now. And let's see if we can get the AUX to work as well. That would be really cool. I think the AUX we might have to do a little more coding for. You see it's not illuminated there, but I do need to investigate that further. For now though, it's nice to see everything working, and let's just get a little bit of music going. All right, well, yeah, that's it, guys. That's a working iDrive retrofit. I hope you guys learned something. I'm super happy, at least. So that's gonna conclude our video for today, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Hopefully this helped you retrofit the iDrive system onto your E90 at home. Like I said, there's gonna be a couple of different options, different ways of retrofitting this system in. But at the end of the day, I hope that you guys learned something, and hopefully this inspired you to go out there and do some cool retrofits of your own on your own BMW. So if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like or a comment down below. Let me know if you have any feedback or tips or anything else about this retrofit that you wanna share, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new and you haven't yet, because it really helps us grow and make a better community for everyone involved. So as always, I hope everyone has an amazing day, and we will see you in the next video.
The next morning.
Hey there, Chris from the future here. I just want to show you in the CCC app, there is an option, AUX coding, auxiliary input, and as you see, mine is not installed. And that's why when we go over to select it, it's grayed out there, so I can't actually select the AUX input. So I'm gonna go ahead and select mounted installed, and then we're gonna export this as a MAN file. And then once you've exported this as a MAN file, you can go back to NTS Expert, change the job to coding, and then execute that job. And now, fingers crossed, looks like we have an AUX input there. I'm not sure what that's about with there being two coding active. Hold on, it's still coding. So now it says coding ended, but we still have two AUX connections on the menu. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to reset right here. And I'm gonna do that by pressing the volume knob and the both eject buttons at the same time. And you'll see that the logo comes up, and this is a hard reset of the CCC computer. And hopefully when it resets now, we should just have one AUX input, hopefully. Interesting. Well, we have two AUX inputs. Isn't that interesting? Let's try out the AUX input that we do have. Plug into my laptop here. There you go, guys. That's a working iDrive and a working AUX cord for you. Just as my battery gets low.